Sophia, a shy and gentle young lady in her early 20s, worked as a maid in the grand mansion of Mrs. Amelia Sinclair, a wealthy and influential businesswoman. Despite the mansion's beauty, Sophia's life was anything but glamorous. Mrs. Sinclair was known for her harsh nature, and she often directed her frustrations at Sophia. "Can't you do anything right, Sophia?" Mrs. Sinclair's voice rang through the marble-floored kitchen as she slammed a glass onto the counter. "You're so useless. I don't even know why I keep you here." Sophia lowered her head, clutching the edge of her apron to hide the tears forming in her eyes. She worked tirelessly, but no matter how hard she tried, nothing was ever good enough for Mrs. Sinclair. In the evenings, Sophia would retreat to her small room in the attic. She stared at the cracked ceiling, wondering why life had dealt her such a cruel hand. All she had of her past was a locket with a picture of a baby and an inscription that read, "Forever my love." Sophia didn't know who the baby was or what the words meant. She had grown up in an orphanage, with no family to call her own. Yet, the locket was the only connection to her unknown past. What neither Sophia nor Mrs. Sinclair realized was that the locket held a secret that would soon change their lives forever. One day, Mrs. Sinclair hosted a lavish dinner party, inviting the city's elite. Sophia worked tirelessly to prepare the house, ensuring every detail was perfect. As the guests arrived, Sophia kept her head down, serving drinks and clearing plates. Among the guests was a man named Edward, Mrs. Sinclair's childhood friend. Edward was kind-hearted and observant, unlike the others. When he noticed Sophia struggling with a heavy tray, he stepped forward to help. "Thank you, sir," Sophia said, her voice barely above a whisper. Edward paused, studying her face. There was something oddly familiar about her, but he couldn't place it. "Have we met before?" he asked, frowning slightly. "No, sir. I don't think so," Sophia replied quickly, avoiding his gaze. Mrs. Sinclair interrupted, her tone sharp. "Edward, leave the girl. She has work to do." Throughout the evening, Edward couldn't shake the feeling that he had seen Sophia somewhere before. Meanwhile, Mrs. Sinclair grew increasingly irritated with Sophia's presence. "You're embarrassing me," Mrs. Sinclair hissed at Sophia when she accidentally dropped a glass. "Get out of my sight." Sophia fled to her room, clutching her locket tightly. Little did she know, Edward's curiosity about her would set off a chain of events that would unravel the hidden truths of her past. The next morning, Edward visited Mrs. Sinclair, hoping to ask about Sophia. "Amelia, who is that maid? There's something about her." Mrs. Sinclair dismissed his question. "She's just a servant, Edward. Don't waste your time thinking about her." But Edward was persistent. "Does she have any family? Where did she come from?" Mrs. Sinclair froze for a moment before responding. "She's an orphan. I don't know anything about her past, and frankly, I don't care. Why are you so interested?" Edward didn't answer. Instead, he decided to speak to Sophia directly. Catching her during her break, he gently asked, "Sophia, may I see that locket you wear?" Sophia hesitated but handed it to him. As Edward examined the locket, his face paled. This looks like one I've seen before," he murmured. "Do you know what it means?" Sophia asked, hope flickering in her eyes. Edward didn't respond. Instead, he excused himself and left the mansion abruptly. Edward spent the next few days searching through old photographs and records. He finally found what he was looking for: a picture of Amelia holding a baby with the same locket around its neck. The inscription read, "Forever my love, Sophia." Edward confronted Mrs. Sinclair. "Amelia, is Sophia your daughter?" he asked, holding up the photograph. Mrs. Sinclair turned pale, snatching the picture from his hand. "Where did you get this? You lied to me. You told me you lost the baby. How could you?" Tears welled up in Mrs. Sinclair's eyes. "I thought she was dead," she whispered. "After the accident, I was told she didn't survive. I didn't know she was alive." "You've been mistreating your own daughter, Amelia. You need to tell her the truth," Edward said sternly. But Mrs. Sinclair couldn't bring herself to face Sophia. The guilt was too overwhelming. One evening, while Sophia was cleaning the study, she accidentally knocked over a stack of papers. Among them was the photograph of Mrs. Sinclair and the baby. She picked it up, her hands trembling as she recognized the locket in the picture. "What is this?" Sophia whispered. Mrs. Sinclair entered the room and froze. "Sophia, I can explain." Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she pieced everything together. "You're my mother?" Mrs. Sinclair nodded, her own tears falling freely. "I didn't know, Sophia. I swear, I didn't know it was you. How could you treat me like this?" Sophia cried. "Even if you didn't know, how could you be so cruel?" Mrs. Sinclair fell to her knees. "I'm sorry, Sophia. I was blinded by my own bitterness. Please, forgive me." The revelation changed everything. Mrs. Sinclair tried to make amends, showering Sophia with love and apologies. She introduced her to the world as her daughter, ensuring that Sophia never had to feel unworthy again. But forgiveness didn't come easily. Sophia struggled to reconcile the mother she had longed for with the woman who had caused her so much pain. In time, they began to heal. Sophia chose to keep the locket as a reminder of her journey, and Mrs. Sinclair vowed never to let her daughter feel unloved again. The mansion, once cold and hostile, became a place of warmth and laughter. And as Sophia looked at the woman who had once been her tormentor, she realized that even the deepest wounds could be mended with love and understanding. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tales? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest update. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.